We have attorney Elaretha Coleman in the house tonight. Managing attorney of Property Claims Litigation Law Group. Did I say that right, attorney? There we go. There we go. Let me see how many more minutes we got. We got a little bit more time. Give the people a chance to come on in. Now, are you following on your phone? Am I doing this right? Nope, I'm not. Hold on. All right. I'm going live also on Instagram. Hello. Oh, 1 second. There you go. There we go. All right. Oh, 1 second. Okay, we're almost there. 6:59. There you go. Very good. All right. Okay. There it is. Okay, we're almost there. 6:59. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. There it is. Okay, there we go. I'm hearing it echo.
Here's my phone.
Okay. All right. Hey guys. Look at the folks from Instagram tuning in. Thank you so much. Oh, so sweet. Mrs. Mom Boss Lawyer, Jim _ go to. Peace and blessings to you. So today we have attorney Elaretha Coleman, and she is from Property Claims Litigation Law Group, and she will be talking about insurance claims, and not from the perspective of personal injury, but from that of a property owner. And so she has been practicing for over 10 years in the Atlanta metro area. She is very well versed in immigration. That's me, in insurance claims. And so I wanted to bring her on because there were some questions about our discussion last week during our live landlord tenant feed, where folks had questions about commercial lease agreements and how their insurance, liability insurance, would possibly help them during this pandemic. And so I said, I'm not the one to answer those questions, but I know the person who can answer those questions. And so we have attorney Coleman here today. And so we're really happy about having her here. Attorney Coleman, anything you want to say to the people?
Hi, Attorney Montgomery. Thank you for being
here. Thank you for being here.
As you said, I've been a property insurance claims attorney for the better part of the last 15 years, handling claims in both Georgia, Louisiana, and Florida. So just wanted to come on and answer the questions that I know your clients, specifically landlords, may have as to whether or not they would have any type of insurance coverage for COVID-19.
Yes, but also tenants. So for the folks who have commercial leases, you know, the folks who own restaurants, the folks who own medical practices, those folks also have questions. And so we're hoping that you can give them some direction on how to move forward. Hi, Nisa Shine. Thanks for joining us on Facebook. And so one of the questions that folks had was how does their policy help them? They've been paying this insurance every month, their insurance premiums, and they want to know, can they get anything out of it? So can you tell us a little bit about that in terms of business interruption and what's been going on?
Well, as far as COVID-19 goes, their best chances of getting coverage under their insurance policy is going to be through a business interruption claim. The first thing they're going to want to do is read their policy. through and through. A lot of people have their declarations page and a list of endorsements, which is only, 3 to 5 pages. However, your insurance policy for commercial policy is going to be, anywhere between 30 and 100 pages, depending on how detailed and who your carrier is. So the first thing you want to do is get a certified copy of your policy with all of the endorsements. You can contact your insurance agent. They can provide that to you, typically electronically, rather quickly. Secondly, you're going to want to determine if you have a named peril policy or an all-risk policy. An all-risk policy covers everything except those things that are excluded. A named peril policy is only going to cover named perils for fire, water losses, earthquakes, hurricanes, that sort of thing, but it's going to have to be a listed peril. If you have a named peril policy, you're probably not going to have insurance coverage because the insurance company is not typically going to have a provision that covers viruses and bacteria. But with an all-risk policy, there may be coverage under your business interruption provisions if you do not have an exclusion for viruses and bacteria. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get your policy, read your policy to see what type of coverages you may have.
Okay. So just for the folks that are coming in, hello, Pegster100. Hello, Atanya. Hello, Bougie_Doused. Thank you so much for joining us on Instagram. We have the illustrious attorney Elaretha Coleman here with us today. She is talking about insurance policies and how they can assist you as a business owner or as a landlord during this pandemic. Okay, for those that are just joining us. And so the question
but it is just juice.
Okay. So the next question that we have, if they do have, let's say they have pulled all of their documentation, they have brought it to you to review, and you have determined that they do have business interruption coverage in their policy, then let's talk about what typical types of exclusions may we find in those policies.
One of the biggest exclusions that we're running into is for virus and bacteria. Those provisions were implemented in around 2006 after SARS. Of course, after that epidemic, a lot of insurance carriers started adding an endorsement that prohibited any coverage for virus and bacteria. So that's the first thing we're going to be looking for after we've determined that there's business interruption coverage. Depending on how detailed that provision is written, that's likely going to exclude all claims under COVID-19. Other than possibly for civil authority coverage for a shutdown that requires the business to close. But for most business interruption claims, the virus and bacteria exclusions are going to exclude coverage. However, if there's not a virus and bacteria exclusion in the policy, the next thing we're going to be looking for is, do they have contingent or supply chain coverage? Some of the things that we're running into thus far are, with suppliers not being able to provide products to servicers. So restaurants would have supply chain coverage typically. Farmers policies, grocery stores will usually have a supply chain coverage. So if they can't get the products that they need to sell to make money, then that would also be an avenue for coverage.
Okay. All right. So then we're looking at restaurateurs that
grocery stores. Those are some big ones. Factories that are producing items, they can't get the supplies that they need to be able to continue with production.
Okay. And then what are some, so let's talk about, for example, let me talk to you about, I've been seeing this in the news lately, that medical providers, specifically fertility treatment specialists, have had to stop providing any sort of fertility treatment to potential mothers or future mothers. how can their policy assist them?
Well, one of the things that we're specifically looking for with medical providers who cannot provide optional services, voluntary treatments such as fertility, cosmetic surgery, weight loss surgery, those things that are not medically necessary are emergent. And those providers have been forced to shut down. So they are unable to provide their typical line of business at this point. So that's definitely something that we're going to be looking at as to what net profit loss they've had. Because with a business interruption claim, it doesn't look at just a loss of revenues. It looks at a loss of your net profits. So what you would have taken out of the business after you've paid your overhead expenses, payroll, employees, those sorts of things. So those are definitely the things we're going to be looking for because those businesses have been forced to shut down altogether.
Okay. So when we talk about business owners, can you explain to the folks how this policy, their business interruption coverage may not assist some businesses? And I'll give you an example for folks who own law firms like yourself and myself. What would be the issue for us if we try to present a claim?
For businesses in general, and I'm just going to be frank, the insurance companies are going to fight these claims tooth and nail. Most of your insurance policies are going to have a provision that it only provides for losses resulting from direct physical damage.
Okay.
So we're going to need to get past that hurdle first as to what's the direct physical damage. Some of the shutdown orders have specifically stated that the virus has caused direct physical damage to businesses and required the shutdown. Some haven't. So that's going to be the first argument that we're going to have to make and get past. Secondly, getting past, again, the virus and bacteria exclusions. Some policies are only going to have very vague or general pollution exclusions, or some aren't going to address it at all. Mm-hmm. Insurance contracts are contracts of adhesion, which means that when you and I get insurance, we don't get to negotiate the terms and the endorsements in that policy. We have to purchase it as it's offered by our insurance carrier. And because of that, if there's any ambiguities in that policy, it's construed against the drafter, which is the insurance company, and in favor of the policyholder, which is us, the end consumer.
Okay.
Specifically with respect to law firms, one of the things that's going to be difficult, especially if you're able to work remotely and service your clients remotely, is tying the direct correlation to any loss of net income directly to the COVID-19 crisis, and not something else. Because the COVID-19 crisis has kind of snowballed into a number of things. It's caused a drop in the economy.
Right.
Results in a drop in, especially those of us who service consumers, a drop in, demand. The courts are closed, which has caused a drop in demand, a drop in ability to bill hours when we can't have trials and hearings. So that tying that direct correlation to the COVID crisis causing damage to your specific law office, as opposed to not some other ancillary results of the COVID crisis.
So with that, then, would hairdressers and barbers, would they fall into kind of that same category in terms of supply and demand because of the loss of jobs, loss of income?
Well, the difference between hair salons, nail salons, barbers is that they have been ordered to close. They cannot be open. They cannot service clients. There's only so much you can do remotely. I tried to have a FaceTime with my hairdresser, but it was something extremely, extremely basic. There's not a whole lot that she could really do for me virtually, with me being a novice in styling my own hair.
Right.
Like with us, with law firms, I mean, we can have these very same, Zoom, FaceTime, virtual conferences with our clients, and in some cases with the court.
Right.
So that's the difference between service providers such as barbers, nail salons, masseuse, hair salons, as opposed to law firms, because they were physically required to shut down and cannot provide their services.
Okay.
So their loss of income, they would need to be, we would historically look at what they've historically made as compared to what they're making now.
Okay.
During the shutdown, which in most cases is gone to zero.
Okay. So within that, what if you have a situation where the landlord has said, listen, I'm complying with the stay-at-home order, and therefore I'm closing the building. So when you have a business building set up where there are multiple offices in one building, and the landlord is saying, I'm sorry, even if you are an essential business, I can't keep the building open because I don't want that sort of liability. What do you say to that?
The landlord was also opening itself up to the liability of whether or not they're going to be owed rent by their tenants, depending on what their lease says. I would think that would not fall under civil authority coverage if it's the landlord specifically shutting down the building, if they're not one of the businesses that were required to shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So the landlord refuses to provide them space, then that would not fall under their insurance policy generally.
Okay. Now, is there any sort of coverage or protection that the landlord can garner from their policies?
It's going to fall back on whether or not the business that is leasing from the landlord is one of those businesses that was required to shut down. If your tenant can't pay rent, there's a couple of issues that you're going to run into with that. Okay. Because one, the landlord has a contract with their tenant. The tenant is still obligated to pay rent, even though the state, county, city may have shut down their business. Mm-hmm. They're still obligated under that lease agreement to pay rent to their landlord. Mm-hmm.
But the landlord could say, I too am running a business, right? The business of leasing property. And so now I'm in a situation where my tenants can't pay rent to me, and I have a mortgage. So is there any protection available to them?
Not under their insurance policy, because it's an obligation that a third party owes you.
Okay.
So your insurance policy is not going to open that door for the obligation that third party owes you.
Okay. So that would not fall under business interruption coverage, then, is what you're saying, for the landlord?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, that answers that question. I think the landlords are really hoping that maybe they too run a business, and maybe they could do something to kind of assist in terms of maybe they have not been able to access any PPP funds or government funds. And so they're trying to figure out, how do I stay afloat myself? How do I keep these mortgages paid? And so the hope, I think a lot of landlords who I've spoken to have said, is there any sort of protection that I can have from this insurance that I'm paying every month? And so you're saying that it wouldn't fall into that category?
No, it wouldn't fall under the business interruption coverage, because they have another avenue of recovery, which is through their tenant. Gotcha.
Okay. So tell us what you are seeing in the communications and the clients that are reaching out to you since the crisis in this pandemic.
Well, it's a lot of, especially with restaurants who are having a significant drop, depending on where you are. If you're a restaurant that also sells alcohol as well, I mean, not only have you lost your dining room, but in some municipalities, you can't sell to-go alcohol. Some you can, some you can't. So they've had and alcohol is one of the most profitable areas of a restaurant business generally.
Right.
Because they buy it so cheap and sell it to us for a significant markup.
The lighting, did it go out?
It did. I don't know what happened.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. I thought we lost you there for a sec. There we go.
No.
Okay. So exactly. So when you're talking about selling alcohol, most restaurants, that's kind of how they make their money.
Exactly. exactly.
All
And
right.
then in bars and nightclubs still aren't open. So, and that's where they make most of their money as well.
So what do you say to those that, because some restaurants, I'll give an example, Starbucks closed down completely, right? PF Chains closed down completely. A lot of the big chains, they closed down completely, but then you had some of the smaller ones that were still going. So they were still doing, Uber Eats major right now, right? DoorDash is major right now. So are those businesses able to seek that coverage for business interruption?
Yes, they can absolutely seek the coverage, but they're also going to, even though they're providing services through Uber Eats, DoorDash, Postmates, wherever, these delivery services also charge fees.
Right.
So
Right.
they're now having to not only pay their team and their staff to provide and produce the food, but they're also having to contribute to the delivery service, their fees as well as the driver fees. So they're splitting whatever profits that they would have normally made if they were in-house.
Okay. So let's talk about a big one, a big employer here in Atlanta Metro, which is Delta Airlines. Would they be able to seek some sort of protection of their coverage?
I would think so. I mean, obviously, demand for flights right now is down. I think I read yesterday 90%. So when you think about how many, I mean, you and I travel
Right.
extensive travel.
Correct.
Very rarely has there been this long of a period that we have not been on an airplane.
Correct.
When was the last time you have been on a flight that was not damn near oversold, if not oversold?
Oh, correct.
But
Correct.
they
Every time I've gotten on a flight with every single
right,
time,
exactly.
especially flying overseas or flying to South Florida or to the Caribbean islands, those flights are going to be packed.
Right.
But now they can't pay people to get on those
They
flights.
can't. They cannot. So they have the opposite issue of now we have large Boeing 737s which are essentially empty and flying with a handful of people. But
Right.
still the same amount of fuel. You're still paying the pilots. You're still paying flight attendants. You still have gate agents that still need to service those handful of people. So they're taking a significant bath on this as far as what their net profits are. So provided that their policy provides coverage,
right,
and does not have a virus bacteria exclusion, then yes, they would. This is definitely something that Delta Airlines, I'm sure, is obviously looking into with their insurance carrier. Now that may be offset by any governmental bailout that they're not required to repay.
I see. Well, let's talk about some policies that you've seen, because for most people, this would be considered unprecedented, right?
Right.
So in the policies that you're looking at, do you see language that says pandemic, a viral pandemic is excluded from the policy? Are you seeing that type of language?
But there is, again, that provision that came out after SARS specifically exclude losses resulting from viruses and bacteria. So yes, we do absolutely see that language in policies. There's going to be a significant amount of insurance policies that are going to have that exclusion, and their policyholders are frankly not going to be able to recover.
Okay, so you're saying that you haven't seen it now, but you're saying in the future you're probably going to start to.
We have seen it. Those policies went into effect in 2006.
Oh, okay.
After SARS, yes. So there are policies that, as we see here today, are going to have those exclusions.
Gotcha. And so, is there any recommendations that you can give folks if that is an exclusion that they find in their policies?
If that's an exclusion that they find in their policies, the second best thing to look for is whether or not you have some civil authority coverage that is not excluded by that endorsement. which with civil authority coverage is usually limited to a very short period of time of a few weeks.
Okay.
May cover a shutdown, especially in Georgia. Our shutdown was rather short compared to other states. So they may have some coverage under those provisions.
Okay. So you're saying that if they schedule a consultation with your firm, that even if you find those exclusions, that there may be a way to work around them.
Correct. And, everything's on a case-by-case basis. And what we're doing now is we're, as opposed to doing consultations, we're requesting a copy of their policy. Let us do a free policy review of your policy and determine whether or not there's a possibility of coverage. And then if we determine that there's a possibility of coverage, then we can schedule the consultation, get the specific losses, and go through what their avenues of recovery are.
Okay, so you are saying to the people who are listening and will be listening to this segment that your firm is offering a courtesy consultation to review their policy and see if there can be some sort of coverage to assist them for business interruption.
Correct, a free policy review.
So you're saying that they will be able to come up to the penthouse on Marietta Street and they will get an opportunity to find out if possibly they can find some sort of coverage.
No. In the words of Babyface, we are socially distancing. But they can email us a copy of their policy. Until it is safe, we are not subjecting our team, our staff, or our clients to coming out unnecessarily. But we have been set up to be virtual for quite some time. Everything in our office is cloud-based. Okay. So we are virtually servicing all of our clients, all of our potential clients. So we would ask that they obtain an electronic copy of their insurance policy from their agent and email that to us, and we will happily provide them a policy review and make a determination as to whether or not they have insurance coverage.
Awesome. So please tell the people where they can find you, where you are located, how they can schedule that courtesy consultation. If it's on your website or through a phone call, please let them know how they can reach you.
They can reach us directly via phone at 404-525-3080. They can email a copy of their policy to info@ejoneslaw.com. We can also be found on the web at ejoneslaw.com.
Awesome. We want to thank Attorney Elaretha Coleman for joining us today and sharing this information. Hi, Letta. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Latrice on Facebook, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. And so we will be sharing this live session so that people can get this information. But we so want to thank E. Jones and Associates and Attorney Elaretha Coleman for taking the time out today to share with us this information. I think it was very valuable. I think it was very helpful. So we appreciate you. And so until next time, guys. So thank you so much and have a good evening. All right. Did you want to give a shout out to anybody, Elaretha, since you're online?
See who is joined in. So I don't think I can see that from my end.
Oh, you're welcome, Jim_Guto. I'm glad that you found the information informative. So he said, thank you so much, ladies. And so we appreciate you guys tuning in with us. I thought you were going to give a shout out to Ariana, but is she sleeping?
No, she's upstairs with her dad.
Oh.
Hi, LaShonda.
LaShonda, thank you for joining us. We're actually wrapping up, but of course we will have it available for you to listen to at a later time and date, but we thank you for joining us. We also want to thank, we had a co-host that you guys cannot see. Her name is Coco. She is about 11 pounds and she wanted, here we go. Say hi, Coco. Coco was the one squeaking her toy throughout this whole segment.
Hi,
thank you, Coco, for your assistance. But again, thank you so much, Attorney Elaretha Coleman, and we appreciate you, and we'll be sending the folks your way. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nicola Shine says the information was invaluable. So thank you so much. All right then, ladies. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.